I am Colton Barnes, 26 years old and fresh Harvard Law graduate. Standing in my apartment holding my acceptance letter, as the valedictorian tears blurred my vision, I immediately called Mom to share the news, imagining her proud face at graduation. Instead, her cold voice shattered my world. "We cannot come. Nathan needs that money for his startup." When I protested, she snarled, "Your success means nothing. Nathan is the only son who matters." Drop a comment below telling me where you are watching from. If this resonates with you, please like and subscribe to support my channel. Family betrayal cuts deep, and my story might help you heal from your own wounds. My childhood in Chicago seemed picture-perfect from the outside. My father, John, worked as a financial director at a respectable firm, while my mother, Rebecca, taught third grade at a local elementary school. We lived in a spacious two-story house in a good neighborhood with excellent schools. To neighbors, we were the quintessential American dream family. But beneath that polished surface lay a complicated reality I grew to understand only as I matured. As the firstborn, I initially received adequate attention and care from my parents. I showed early signs of intelligence, reading before kindergarten and solving complex puzzles that impressed even adults. My report cards consistently displayed straight A's, and teachers often contacted my parents to discuss my exceptional aptitude. Everything changed when Nathan arrived 3 years after my birth. From the moment my brother came home, a subtle shift occurred in our family dynamic. My mother especially developed an attachment to Nathan that bordered on obsession. While I was expected to be self-sufficient from an early age, Nathan received endless coddling and attention. "Boys need more support," my mother would say whenever I questioned the disparity in how we were treated. "They have more pressure on them to succeed in this world." The different standards became increasingly evident as we grew. When I was 10, I won the regional spelling bee, beating students 2 grades above me. My parents attended but left early because Nathan had a little league game. My trophy ended up in a drawer while Nathan's participation medals decorated the living room wall. For my education, I attended the local public school, despite my academic achievements. Meanwhile, my parents scraped together money to send Nathan to Lakeside Academy, an expensive private school known for its sports program rather than academics. When I asked why I could not attend a school that matched my academic interests, my father simply stated, "We have limited resources, and Nathan needs the connections that school provides." By high school, I had learned to rely entirely on myself. While maintaining perfect grades, I worked part-time at the local library to save for college. I joined debate club, mock trial, and student government, building a resume that would attract scholarship opportunities. At home, conversations revolved around Nathan's average performance at school and his promising baseball career that never quite materialized. Despite the imbalance, Nathan and I occasionally shared moments of genuine sibling connection. Late-night conversations about our dreams, helping each other with problems our parents could not understand, and defending each other against neighborhood bullies. These moments grew rarer as our parents' favoritism became more pronounced, creating an unavoidable wedge between us. My father, though less obvious in his preference, enabled my mother's behavior. When I approached him privately about the unfairness, he would sigh and say, "Your mother has always wanted a son. Try to understand." As if my existence as a daughter somehow disappointed them from the start. During my junior year of high school, I discovered my parents had established a college fund for Nathan, while expecting me to secure scholarships. This revelation came during dinner when they proudly announced they had saved $20,000 for Nathan's education. When I asked about my college fund, my mother laughed. "With your grades, you will get scholarships. Nathan needs this safety net." That night I cried silently in my room, not from sadness, but from determination. I would succeed despite them, not because of them. I applied to 37 scholarships my senior year, writing essays late into the night after finishing homework and work shifts. By graduation, I had secured enough funding to attend Northwestern University without a penny from my parents. The day I left for college, my mother hugged me briefly, before turning her attention to helping Nathan with his science project. My father slipped me $500 when she was not looking, and whispered, "I am proud of you." It was too little too late, but I accepted it as the most he could offer given the dynamics of our home. Law became my dream. not just because I excelled in debate and critical thinking, but because I was drawn to the concept of justice. Perhaps subconsciously, I sought to create order in a world where my own family relationships felt so unjust. Whatever the psychological underpinnings, I knew becoming an attorney would give me both independence and the respect my family had never offered. 4 years at Northwestern passed in a blur of academic excellence, part-time jobs, and strategic networking. I graduated summa cum laude with a double major in political science and philosophy, positioning myself perfectly for law school applications. When the acceptance letter from Harvard Law arrived with a full scholarship offer, I allowed myself a moment of pure, unfiltered joy. Not even my family's lukewarm reaction could diminish the pride I felt in that accomplishment. Moving to Cambridge meant starting fresh. My studio apartment was tiny and expensive, but it was mine, paid for with my scholarship and savings. The first day of orientation at Harvard Law felt surreal, walking among the historic buildings where legal legends had studied. Imposter syndrome threatened to overwhelm me until our first round of exams, where I ranked in the top 5% of my class, confirming I belonged in those hallowed halls. Law school was brutal, yet exhilarating. 16-hour days became my norm, classes in the morning, study groups in the afternoon, and working as a research assistant for Professor Adams, a renowned constitutional law expert, in the evenings. Sleep became a luxury I rarely afforded myself, surviving on caffeine and determination. Despite the grueling schedule, I thrived on the intellectual challenge and the respect I earned from professors who recognized my capabilities. While most students relied on family support or accumulated debt, I took a part-time position at Blackwell and Schmidt, a prestigious firm in Boston. The partners initially hired me to organize their case files, but soon recognized my potential and allowed me to assist with research for actual cases. The modest salary covered my living expenses and provided invaluable practical experience that complemented my theoretical studies. At Harvard, I finally found my tribe. Rachel Martinez became my closest friend after we partnered for a mock trial competition and demolished our opponents with meticulous preparation. Unlike the conditional acceptance I received at home, Rachel appreciated me for exactly who I was. Our friendship became my emotional anchor through the stresses of law school. She introduced me to her study group, 5 brilliant, ambitious students who became my chosen family. "Your parents are idiots for not seeing how amazing you are," Rachel declared after I shared stories of my childhood during a rare night out. Her straightforward loyalty was refreshing after years of gaslighting from my own family. While I built my future brick by brick, Nathan dropped out of college during his 3rd year at University of Illinois. He had bounced between 4 different majors, never quite finding his footing academically. One day he called me, unusually excited. "I am starting a tech company," he announced. "An app that will revolutionize how people order food from local restaurants." "That sounds interesting," I replied carefully. "But what about finishing your degree first?" "Degrees are for people who cannot create opportunities," he said dismissively. "Mom and Dad think this could be huge. They are helping with startup costs." Later, I discovered what helping meant. My parents had withdrawn $30,000 from their retirement account to fund Nathan's venture. Despite my concerns about the app's viability in an already saturated market, they ignored my cautious questions, accusing me of jealousy. "You always want to rain on his parade," my mother said during one of our increasingly rare phone calls. "Not everyone is meant for traditional success like you." I attempted to maintain connections with my family despite their disinterest in my achievements. When I made law review an honor bestowed on only the top-performing students, my mother listened for 30 seconds before interrupting to tell me about Nathan securing a meeting with a potential investor. When I won the prestigious moot court competition, my father congratulated me briefly before asking if I could review the business plan for Nathan's company. By my final year at Harvard, I had positioned myself for success. Firms were already courting me with job offers, impressed by my academic record and practical experience. Professor Adams recommended me for a judicial clerkship with the First Circuit Court of Appeals, a position that would open countless doors in my career. The crowning achievement came when I was selected as valedictorian of my class. The news arrived via email from the dean congratulating me on maintaining the highest GPA in a class of 500 exceptional students. My hands trembled as I read the message, overcome by validation of my relentless work. Professor Adams took me to dinner to celebrate raising a toast to the most brilliant student I have had the privilege to teach. That night I called my parents, believing that surely this accomplishment would finally earn their recognition. My mother answered, sounding distracted. "That is nice, honey," she said after I shared my news. "Listen, Nathan is here with some documents for his business. Can I call you back later?" She never did. Despite the familiar sting of disappointment, I focused on the upcoming graduation. I mailed formal invitations to my parents and brother, along with information about travel and accommodations. Rachel's parents had already booked their flights from California, planning to attend, despite having met me only twice. The contrast was painful but no longer surprising. 2 weeks before graduation, I received an email from my father confirming they had purchased plane tickets. A small spark of hope ignited in my chest. Perhaps this milestone would be different. Perhaps they would finally see me. I could not have imagined how wrong I was. 3 days before my Harvard Law graduation ceremony, I was finalizing my valedictorian speech when my phone rang. Seeing my mother's name on the screen, I answered with genuine enthusiasm. "Mom, I am so glad you called. I wanted to confirm where we should meet before the ceremony. The graduates need to arrive early, but I can leave your names at the VIP entrance, so you will have excellent seats." The silence on the other end stretched uncomfortably before my mother cleared her throat. "About that, Colton, there has been a change of plans." My stomach knotted instantly. I knew that tone. It was the same one she used when explaining why they could not attend my high school debate championships or college graduation. "What kind of change?" I asked, already bracing myself. "We cannot come to your graduation." Her voice was matter-of-fact, devoid of apology. "Nathan's business is at a critical stage. An investor pulled out unexpectedly, and he needs immediate capital to keep things afloat." The implication was clear before she even said it. We had to use the plane ticket money to help him. The familiar pain sliced through me, but this time accompanied by something new: rage. After everything I had accomplished, after all the years of neglect and dismissal, they were abandoning me at what should have been one of the proudest moments of my life. "You are joking, right?" My voice sounded foreign to my own ears. "I am graduating at the top of my class from Harvard Law. I am the valedictorian. I will be speaking in front of thousands of people, and you cannot be bothered to show up." "Do not be dramatic, Colton," my mother replied. "You have always been independent. Nathan needs us right now." "I needed you too." The words burst from me with such force that I surprised myself. "I have always needed you, but you never saw that because you were too busy catering to Nathan's every whim." "That is not fair," she snapped. "Nathan is trying to build something important. Your little academic achievements were always going to happen. You have always been book smart." "Little academic achievements," I echoed in disbelief. "I earned a full scholarship to Harvard Law. I am graduating first in my class. I have job offers from the top firms in the country. How is that little dot?" "You know what I mean," she said dismissively. "It is different for Nathan. He is creating something, taking risks. That deserves our support." "And I do not deserve your support. Your presence at one of the most important days of my life." The line went quiet again before my mother delivered the blow that would forever change our relationship. "Your success means nothing, Colton. Nathan is the only son who matters. He is carrying on the family legacy." The phone slipped from my fingers as if it had suddenly burned my skin. I sat frozen, her words replaying in my mind. All the years of subtle favoritism, of being overlooked and undervalued, crystallized into this explicit declaration of where I stood in my family's hierarchy. When I finally retrieved my phone, I spoke with a calm that belied the storm within me. "I understand perfectly now. Thank you for making it so clear." "Colton, wait," my mother backpedaled, perhaps realizing she had gone too far. "I did not mean it like that." "Yes, you did. And that is fine. I will not bother you with my accomplishments anymore." I ended the call, and immediately turned off my phone, unable to bear any more conversation. The apartment that had felt so full of promise minutes earlier now seemed to close in around me. I slid down against the wall, hugging my knees to my chest as tears finally came. Rachel found me like that an hour later when she arrived with takeout to help me prepare for graduation. One look at my face told her everything. "They are not coming, are they?" she asked, softly sitting beside me on the floor. I shook my head, unable to repeat my mother's words. "Then screw them," Rachel said firmly. "My parents already think of you as their second daughter. They will cheer twice as loud to make up for it." Over the next 2 days, my law school friends rallied around me. Professor Adams, upon hearing about my situation, invited me to join his family for the post-graduation dinner. My colleagues at Blackwell and Schmidt sent a massive bouquet with a card signed by everyone at the firm. The morning of graduation dawned bright and clear. As I donned my cap and gown, I made a decision this day would be about celebrating my achievements, not mourning my family's absence. I revised my valedictorian speech, removing all mentions of family support and focusing instead on personal resilience and the community we build for ourselves. Walking across that stage to accept my diploma, I searched the crowd out of habit. Instead of my parents' faces, I found Rachel's parents waving enthusiastically, Professor Adams nodding with pride, and my study group cheering loudly. In that moment, I realized I had not been abandoned at all. I had simply found my real family. The speech I delivered spoke of justice, perseverance, and creating one's own path. As I concluded to thunderous applause, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. I had done this all on my own, and no one could take that away from me. That evening, during the celebration dinner, my phone buzzed with a text from my father. "Congratulations on your graduation. Nathan just secured another meeting with investors. Things are looking up for his company." I placed my phone face down on the table and rejoined the conversation with people who genuinely cared about me. The contrast could not have been clearer, and for the first time I felt no need to seek my family's approval. Their absence had finally freed me. 1 month after graduation, I reluctantly agreed to attend our annual family dinner at my parents' home in Chicago. Despite the graduation debacle, some misguided sense of obligation pulled me back. Perhaps I still harbored a childish hope that things could change, that my accomplishments might finally register with them. I had recently accepted a position at Lanson Wright and Associates in New York, one of the top firms in the country, and would be moving there in 2 weeks. The moment I entered my childhood home, I was reminded why I had stayed away. The living room walls displayed a shrine to Nathan's existence photos from every stage of his life, framed newspaper clippings about his high school baseball games, and now promotional materials for his app company, Food Fetch. My own presence in the house had been virtually erased, with only a single family photo from my 10th birthday, acknowledging I existed at all. My mother hugged me briefly before immediately launching into updates about Nathan. "He has been working so hard, barely sleeping. That is what real entrepreneurship looks like. Such dedication." My father offered a more genuine welcome, but even his questions focused primarily on whether my job would provide useful connections for Nathan's business. Neither of them asked about my graduation, my speech, or my achievements. It was as if the entire event had never happened. When Nathan arrived an hour late, my parents fluttered around him like attendants to royalty. He looked stressed and thinner than I remembered, but carried himself with the unearned confidence of someone who had never faced real consequences for failure. "The prodigal daughter returns," he announced upon seeing me, his tone making the biblical reference feel more mocking than welcoming. Finally decided family matters after all. I forced a smile. "Good to see you too, Nathan. How is the business going?" This innocent question opened the floodgates. For the next 45 minutes during dinner, Nathan dominated the conversation with grandiose claims about Food Fetch's potential, dropping tech jargon he clearly did not fully understand, and making market predictions that contradicted basic economic principles. As someone who had taken business law courses, I could spot the holes in his business model immediately. "We are about to enter our Series A funding round," he declared, though his description of the process revealed a fundamental misunderstanding of venture capital structures. "But we need bridge financing to get there. The burn rate has been higher than expected because we are scaling aggressively." My mother nodded as if he were sharing profound wisdom. "Your father and I have been discussing how we can help with that." This caught my attention. "Help how exactly?" My father looked uncomfortable, studying his plate as he answered. "We have some equity in the house we can access, and there is still a bit left in our retirement accounts." Alarm bells rang in my mind. You are considering taking out a second mortgage to fund Nathan's app and depleting your retirement further. Dad, you are only 8 years from retirement age. It is an investment, my mother snapped. Something you would understand if you had any business sense instead of just book learning. I took a deep breath, trying to remain calm. I understand investments quite well, actually. I also understand that over 90% of startups fail, especially in the oversaturated food delivery market. Have you seen any actual financial projections? User acquisition costs, revenue models? Nathan's face flushed with anger. Just because you went to some fancy law school does not mean you understand what I am building. This is the real world, not some theoretical case study. Exactly, I countered. And in the real world, investors want to see proven concepts before they pour money in. What evidence do you have that FoodFetch is viable? We have 500 downloads already, Nathan said defensively. And how many active users? How many repeat customers? What is your customer acquisition cost? His silence answered my questions more eloquently than words could have. You are just jealous, Nathan finally sputtered. You have always been jealous that Mom and Dad support my dreams while you had to go off and do everything on your own. Support your dreams, I repeated incredulously. Nathan, they paid for your private school education while I attended public school. They established a college fund for you while expecting me to secure scholarships. They have repeatedly drained their savings to fund your ventures while showing zero interest in my achievements. What exactly should I be jealous of? See, Nathan turned to our parents. She has always resented me. She has never supported this family. My mother reached across the table to pat his hand. We know, sweetheart. Colton has always been focused on herself. She does not understand what it means to be part of something bigger. The injustice of this statement struck me like a physical blow. I had spent years supporting myself precisely because they had channeled all family resources to Nathan. I had never asked them for money, had worked through college and law school, had built my career through relentless effort while Nathan bounced between majors before dropping out entirely. What exactly have I failed to support? I asked quietly. When have any of you supported me? My mother's eyes narrowed. We raised you, put a roof over your head, fed you, and this is the gratitude we get. You cannot even be happy for your brother's success. What success? The words escaped before I could stop them. His company is failing. He has no viable business model. He has burned through your retirement savings with nothing to show for it. You cannot possibly understand, my mother said dismissively. You have never known what it feels like to watch your child create something meaningful. All you do is follow rules and pass tests. Nathan is building something that could change the world. A food delivery app in a market that already has Uber Eats, DoorDash, Grubhub, and dozens of others is going to change the world. I could not keep the sarcasm from my voice. You have no vision, my mother continued as if I had not spoken. You cannot understand the pride we feel having a son with such ambition. Girls like you just do not get it. The room fell silent as her words hung in the air. Even Nathan looked uncomfortable at the explicitly sexist remark. Girls like me, I repeated softly. You mean Harvard Law valedictorians who secured a position at one of the most prestigious firms in the country through their own merit. You are right, I guess. I do not get why that is less valuable than a failing app. My father finally spoke up, though not in my defense. Colton, you need to understand that family businesses are different. This is about legacy. Legacy. I laughed without humor. Dad, be honest. Have you even seen a business plan? Do you know how Nathan has spent the money you have given him? Before he could answer, my mother interjected. We do not need to justify our choices to you. Nathan is our son. He deserves our support. And what am I? The question slipped out, revealing more vulnerability than I had intended. My mother's response was devastating in its casual cruelty. You know what I mean, Colton. You cannot possibly understand the pride of having a son who carries on the family name, who takes risks to build something lasting. Your achievements are nice, but they are just for you. They do not bring the same honor to the family. As if realizing she had gone too far, she added hastily, Of course, we are proud of you too in a different way. A different way, I echoed. I see. I stood up from the table, suddenly unable to stomach another minute in that house. As I did, I noticed mail on the sideboard, including what appeared to be foreclosure warnings. Picking up the envelope, I turned to my father. "Are you behind on the mortgage because of Nathan's company?" My father's silence and averted eyes confirmed my suspicions. "You are going to lose this house," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "All for an app that will never launch." "Mind your own business," Nathan snapped, grabbing the letter from my hand. "This is between Mom, Dad, and me. We do not need your judgment." I looked at my father, the man who had occasionally slipped me small signs of affection when my mother was not looking, the man who had at least pretended to care about my achievements. "Dad, say something. Tell me, you are not risking everything for this." He remained silent, eyes fixed on the table. In that moment, I understood that nothing would ever change. My place in this family had been determined at birth, and no achievement, no success, would ever alter that fundamental reality. I was the daughter they had settled for while waiting for the son they truly wanted. "I am leaving," I announced, gathering my purse. "And I will not be coming back." The move to New York became my clean break. I did not leave a forwarding address with my family, changed my phone number, and created new email accounts. The only link I maintained was through Rachel, who agreed to be an emergency contact if absolutely necessary. My parents and Nathan could reach me through her, but only in dire circumstances. My apartment in Manhattan was small, but entirely mine, paid for with my own salary. I threw myself into work at Lanson Wright and Associates, taking on extra cases and working weekends to establish myself as indispensable. The firm specialized in corporate law, and I quickly developed expertise in merger regulations and financial compliance areas that required meticulous attention to detail and analytical thinking. 3 months into my position, I was assigned to assist on a major acquisition case involving a tech startup being purchased by a larger corporation. The work was fascinating and challenging, requiring me to review complex financial documents and identify potential regulatory issues. My thorough analysis uncovered several problematic practices that could have derailed the acquisition if not addressed. The senior partners were impressed enough to invite me to client meetings, an unusual privilege for someone so junior. "You have an eye for the hidden problems others miss," said Jonathan Lanson, the founding partner, after I identified a potential securities violation that everyone else had overlooked. "That is a rare talent in this field." Outside of work, I slowly built a new life. I joined a running group that met in Central Park on weekends, took cooking classes at a local culinary school, and occasionally attended gallery openings with colleagues. These activities filled my schedule but did little to address the hollow feeling that occasionally surfaced in quiet moments. Despite everything, cutting off my family entirely had left a wound that was still healing. 6 months after moving to New York, the calls began. First to Rachel, then to my work number, which they somehow obtained. Messages from my mother claiming they were worried, that they just wanted to know I was okay. Emails from my father expressing confusion about my extreme reaction to what he termed a simple disagreement. I deleted them all without responding. The time for reconciliation had passed. I had spent 26 years seeking their approval and recognition, and I was done. My success would be for me alone, not for their validation. Nathan was the most persistent. His messages grew increasingly desperate, mentioning business troubles and legal issues. I ignored these too, assuming they were ploys to drag me back into the family drama. Then one Tuesday morning in December, he showed up at my office, unannounced. I was in a meeting with clients when my assistant interrupted with an urgent message. "Your brother is in the reception area causing a scene. Security is about to remove him." Excusing myself, I hurried to the lobby to find Nathan red-faced and shouting at the receptionist. He looked terrible, unshaven and wild-eyed, wearing wrinkled clothes that suggested he had been traveling for days. "Nathan," I said coldly, "what are you doing here?" "Finally," he exclaimed upon seeing me, "they would not tell me where you were. I have been trying to reach you for weeks." "Because I do not want to be reached," I replied, keeping my voice low. "You need to leave. Now." "I cannot leave. I need your help." His voice cracked with genuine panic. "Everything is falling apart. There are investigators looking into the company. They are saying I misrepresented information to investors. Mom and Dad could lose everything." A small part of me felt vindicated. The house of cards had finally collapsed, just as I had predicted. But the larger part remained unmoved. That sounds like a consequence of your actions, not my problem. You do not understand. Nathan insisted, grabbing my arm. They are talking about criminal charges, securities fraud, wire fraud, things I do not even understand. I removed his hand from my arm. Then I suggest you hire a good attorney. I specialize in corporate law, not criminal defense. But you have connections here. You work with important people. You could talk to someone, explain that it was all just business optimism, not actual fraud. The audacity was breathtaking. After years of dismissing my career as mere book learning, he now wanted to use my professional reputation to bail him out of trouble he had created entirely himself. Let me be clear, I said, my voice ice cold. I will not compromise my ethics or professional standing for you. Not now, not ever. So that is it. You will just let Mom and Dad go down with me. They could lose their house, face legal troubles themselves as investors. Is that what you want? His attempt at manipulation was transparent but effective. Despite everything, I did not want my parents to suffer, especially my father, who had at least shown small kindnesses over the years. If they are innocent parties who were misled, they should cooperate with investigators and distance themselves from you legally, I advised. That is the extent of my counsel. Nathan's demeanor suddenly shifted from desperate to threatening. You think you are so much better than us, do not you? Little Miss Perfect with her fancy law degree and big city job. But guess what I have? All the documentation showing Mom and Dad knew exactly what was happening. They signed off on everything, even the projections we showed investors. If I go down, they go down too. The revelation stunned me. Had my parents knowingly participated in fraud, or had Nathan manipulated them, as he had manipulated so many others? Are you threatening me? I asked quietly. I am stating facts, Nathan replied. Help me, or watch our parents go to prison. Your choice, sis. Security approached. Then, having been alerted by the receptionist, Miss Barnes, is everything all right? No, I said firmly. My brother was just leaving. Please escort him out of the building and ensure he does not return. As the guards led him away, Nathan shouted, You cannot run from family, Colton. This will not just disappear. I returned to my meeting apologizing for the interruption, but my mind was elsewhere. Had Nathan been bluffing about my parents' involvement, or had they actually participated in deceiving investors? The implications were serious either way. That evening I requested an emergency week of personal leave, the first time I had asked for any time off since joining the firm. My supervisor approved it immediately, recognizing the dedication I had shown over the past months. Alone in my apartment, I called Rachel, the only person who knew the full history of my family dynamics. He showed up at my office, I explained, after recounting the confrontation, claiming our parents are implicated in whatever fraud he committed. Rachel, now working at a public defender's office in Boston, sighed heavily. Do you believe him? I do not know, I admitted. My father has always been ethically flexible when it comes to Nathan, and my mother would sign anything he put in front of her. What are you going to do? Rachel asked. Nothing, I replied firmly. This is their mess to clean up. Colton, Rachel said gently, I know they hurt you deeply, but if your parents are in legal jeopardy because Nathan manipulated them, can you live with yourself if you do nothing? Her question struck at the heart of my dilemma. Despite years of favoritism and emotional neglect, could I really stand by while my family faced criminal charges? Would that make me as callous as they had been? I need to know the truth, I finally said. Before I decide anything, I need to understand exactly what happened. That sounds reasonable, Rachel agreed. Just be careful not to get pulled back into their dysfunction. As we ended the call, I realized I stood at a crossroads. I could maintain the clean break I had established, preserving my hard-won independence and peace of mind. Or I could wade back into the family chaos, risking my emotional well-being but potentially helping my parents if they were truly victims of Nathan's schemes. The decision would define not just my relationship with my family, but the kind of person I was choosing to become. The week of personal leave became my own private investigation. I began by reaching out to former classmates who now worked in securities law and financial crimes. Without revealing personal connections, I sought their expertise on what typically constituted fraud in startup financing. Their insights painted a disturbing picture of how easily optimistic business projections could cross the line into criminal misrepresentation. The key factors are intent and materiality, explained James, a Harvard classmate now working at the SEC. Did they knowingly misrepresent facts that would influence investor decisions? Armed with this knowledge, I created a secure email account and contacted the regulatory agency Nathan had mentioned. Identifying myself as a concerned attorney with relevant information, I requested a confidential meeting. 2 days later, I sat across from Special Agent Diaz of the Financial Crimes Division. "I appreciate your discretion," I said, after she had outlined the investigation's parameters. "I should disclose that Nathan Barnes is my brother, and the subjects of your investigation include my parents." Agent Diaz raised an eyebrow but maintained her professional demeanor. "That is an unusual conflict of interest. May I ask why you are here?" "I want to understand the extent of my parents' involvement. I believe they may have been manipulated by my brother, though I cannot be certain." "I cannot share specific details of an ongoing investigation," she replied. "But I can tell you we have substantial evidence of fraudulent activities. Your brother created financial projections showing millions in non-existent revenue and user growth metrics that were entirely fabricated." My stomach sank. "And my parents? They signed several documents as corporate officers and participated in investor meetings. Whether they knew the information was false is still being determined." I nodded, absorbing this. If they cooperated fully and could demonstrate they were misled by my brother, would that affect potential charges against them? "Potentially," Agent Diaz acknowledged. "We distinguish between primary actors and those who may have been deceived themselves, but they would need to come forward voluntarily and provide actionable information." Thanking her for her time, I left with a clearer understanding of the situation. Nathan had definitely committed fraud, and my parents were implicated through their signatures and participation. The question remained, had they known what they were doing, or had they blindly trusted Nathan as they always had? My next step was more direct. Using legal databases available through my firm, I researched FoodFetch's corporate filings, investor documents, and financial statements. What I found confirmed my suspicions. The company had claimed partnerships with restaurants that did not exist, user growth that contradicted actual download statistics, and revenue projections based on models that defied basic economic principles. Most damning was an email chain I discovered through a Freedom of Information request to the State Business Registry. Nathan had written to my father explicitly acknowledging that certain figures were enhanced for investor appeal and suggesting they present the optimistic scenario as the baseline. My father had responded with concerns about the legality of such representations, but ultimately acquiesced when Nathan insisted everyone does this in the startup world. My mother appeared less frequently in the documentation, primarily as a signatory on financial statements and corporate resolutions. Her technical role had been Director of Community Relations, a position that seemed to have no actual responsibilities but allowed her to receive a salary from the company, further draining its limited capital. The picture that emerged was complex. Nathan had clearly orchestrated the fraud, but my parents had participated with varying degrees of awareness. My father had expressed concerns but failed to act on them, while my mother appeared to have signed whatever was put in front of her, eager to support her son's venture regardless of ethical considerations. Using this information, I consulted with Thomas Green, a respected criminal defense attorney who specialized in white-collar cases. Without revealing names, I outlined the situation and asked about potential strategies. "The parents need independent counsel immediately," he advised. "Their interests may not align with their sons. If they can demonstrate they were substantially misled or lacked the expertise to recognize the fraud, they might avoid the most serious charges." Armed with this knowledge, I finally reached out to my father, directly using a secure messaging app that would leave no permanent record. "I know about the investigation. We need to talk privately. No Nathan, no Mom, just you and me." His response came within minutes. "Thank you. Please tell me when and where." We arranged to meet at a coffee shop in Philadelphia, neutral territory, halfway between New York and Chicago. When I arrived, my father was already there, looking much older than when I had last seen him. His hair had grayed considerably, and deep lines etched his face. "Colton," he said, rising as I approached. He moved as if to hug me, then stopped himself, recognizing the professional nature of our meeting. "Thank you for coming." "This is not a reconciliation," I stated firmly, taking a seat across from him. "I am here because I do not want to see you go to prison for Nathan's actions." He nodded, eyes downcast. "I understand." "I need to know exactly what happened," I continued. "How much did you know about what Nathan was doing?" Over the next 2 hours, my father detailed the collapse of Food Fetch. Nathan had started with legitimate intentions, but quickly found that the market was oversaturated, and his app offered no compelling advantage over established competitors. Rather than pivot or accept failure, he began exaggerating metrics to attract investors. At first, it was just optimistic projections, my father explained. Then it became outright fabrication. "I suspected things were not right, but your mother was so proud of him, so convinced he would succeed if we just supported him enough." "You knew he was lying to investors," I said. "It was not a question." "I knew the numbers seemed impossible," he admitted. "But Nathan always had explanations, technical jargon I did not understand, and I wanted to believe him." "And the house? The retirement accounts?" My father's shoulders slumped. "All gone. We are 3 months behind on the mortgage. Foreclosure proceedings have started. And Mom, she refuses to believe anything is wrong. She thinks this investigation is just established businesses trying to crush innovation. Nathan has convinced her they are being persecuted." I considered this information carefully. My father had been negligent and willfully blind, but perhaps not actively malicious. My mother remained in denial, committed to supporting Nathan regardless of reality. "Here is what is going to happen," I said, sliding a folder across the table. "This contains the contact information for Thomas Green, a criminal defense attorney who specializes in these cases. You will call him today and retain his services separately from Nathan. You will disclose everything you know about the company's finances and operations. Everything." My father opened the folder with trembling hands. "We cannot afford someone like this." "I will cover the retainer," I replied. "Not for Nathan, only for you and Mom." "Why would you do that? After everything?" "Because despite it all, I do not want to see you in prison," I answered honestly. "And because, unlike some people, I understand what family should mean." The irony was not lost on him. He winced visibly at the implied criticism. "There are conditions," I continued. "You must cooperate fully with investigators regarding Nathan's actions. You cannot protect him anymore. His fraud has to be recognized for what it is." "Your mother will never agree to that." "Then she can find her own attorney," I said coldly. "These are my terms." My father nodded slowly. "And what about our relationship after this is over?" "That depends entirely on what happens next," I replied. "On whether you finally recognize the patterns that brought us here." As we parted, I felt no emotional catharsis, no dramatic reconciliation. This was a practical intervention to prevent a worse outcome, not forgiveness for decades of favoritism and neglect. Over the next 3 months, the situation unfolded largely as I had anticipated. Thomas Green negotiated with prosecutors on my parents' behalf, securing a cooperation agreement that limited their liability in exchange for testimony against Nathan. My father provided detailed documentation of how the fraud had evolved, while my mother reluctantly acknowledged she had signed documents without understanding their implications. Nathan, facing the weight of evidence against him and abandoned by his formerly supportive parents, accepted a plea deal that included disgorgement of any remaining funds to a substantial fine he could not pay and 14 months in federal prison for wire fraud and securities violations. The day the plea was finalized, I received a call from my mother for the first time in nearly a year. "How could you do this to him?" she demanded, her voice raw with emotion. "He is your brother." "I did not do anything to him," I replied calmly. "Nathan committed fraud. These are the consequences of his actions. You turned your father against him. You made him testify. I offered Dad a path to avoid prison. He chose to take it. That was his decision. "We are still your family," she insisted. "You should have protected us." "The way you protected me," I asked quietly. "The way you supported me when I needed you." The silence on the other end suggested my point had registered, however briefly. "I want to see you," she finally said. "We need to talk about this as a family." "I will meet with you," I agreed. "But on my terms, not yours." I arranged for my parents to come to my office in New York the following week. The neutral territory of a conference room seemed appropriate for what needed to be said. Thomas Green accompanied them, as I had suggested, to ensure they understood the legal realities of their situation. When they entered, I was struck by how diminished they appeared. My mother, once so confident in her favoritism, now seemed uncertain and fragile. My father looked resigned, carrying the weight of his poor decisions. "Thank you for coming," I began formally. "I wanted to speak with you directly about what happens next." "We have lost everything," my mother said accusingly. "Are you satisfied now?" Thomas Green intervened gently. "Mrs. Barnes, I should remind you that without your daughter's intervention you would likely be facing criminal charges yourself. The outcome, while difficult, is far better than the alternatives." My mother fell silent, though her expression remained resentful. "I am not here to gloat," I said evenly. "I am here because, despite everything, I do not want to see you homeless or imprisoned. I have reviewed your financial situation with Attorney Green's help, and I understand the extent of the damage." I slid a document across the table. "This is a lease agreement for an apartment in Chicago. It is paid for 1 year, giving you time to rebuild. It is not in an upscale neighborhood, but it is safe and clean." My parents exchanged shocked glances. "Additionally," I continued, "I have arranged for financial counseling services to help you create a sustainable budget moving forward. Dad, there are several companies willing to interview someone with your experience for positions that would provide adequate income. Not what you were making before, but enough to live on." "Why are you doing this?" my father asked, his voice thick with emotion. "Because I am not you," I replied simply. "I do not measure care by convenience or family support by gender preference." My mother flinched at this direct reference to her past behavior. "However," I continued, "my support comes with conditions. First, you will both attend family therapy paid for by me to address the patterns that led us here. Second, you will respect my boundaries about contact and visits. Third, you will acknowledge explicitly and without qualification the favoritism that has damaged our relationship for decades." "That is ridiculous," my mother protested. "We never favored Nathan." I simply stared at her until she looked away, unable to maintain the fiction in the face of such overwhelming evidence. "Those are my terms," I said finally. "Take them or leave them. But understand that this is your last chance at a relationship with me." In that conference room, with the consequences of their choices laid bare before them, my parents faced the truth they had avoided for 26 years. The golden child had fallen, and the daughter they had dismissed was now their only hope for security and family connection. Their acceptance of my terms was the first step on a long road to rebuilding what had been broken, not to recreate the past, but to forge something new on foundations of honesty and mutual respect. 3 years passed since that decisive meeting in my office conference room. In that time, life had transformed for all of us in ways none could have predicted. I had been promoted to junior partner at Lanson Wright and Associates, the youngest person to achieve that position in the firm's 30-year history. My specialty in corporate compliance had proven particularly valuable as regulatory scrutiny increased across industries. My corner office overlooked Madison Avenue, a daily reminder of how far I had come through my own determination. On my desk sat a small cactus, a gift from Rachel during my first week in New York. "Thrives in harsh conditions," she had written on the card. "Reminds me of someone I know." The relationship with my parents evolved slowly, painfully, but steadily. True to my requirements, they attended family therapy first reluctantly, and then with growing commitment, as they began to recognize patterns that had damaged not just their relationship with me, but with each other. My father found work as a financial advisor at a mid-sized firm, earning less than before, but finding unexpected satisfaction in helping ordinary families plan responsibly for their futures. The irony of this role after his own financial mistakes was not lost on him, and he often commented that his past failures made him more empathetic to clients' concerns. My mother struggled more with the adjustments. Losing their home and social standing had been a profound blow to her identity. The therapy sessions revealed deep-seated insecurities about her own worth that she had projected onto Nathan, seeing his success as validation of her value as a parent and person. Recognizing this pattern was painful but necessary for her growth. Our interactions remained structured and somewhat formal. Monthly video calls, occasional visits under specific circumstances, always with clear boundaries. I maintained my emotional distance, allowing only gradual closeness as they demonstrated consistent change. Trust, once shattered, could only be rebuilt piece by tiny piece. Nathan's story took its own complicated turn. After serving 11 months of his 14-month sentence, he was released on probation. The experience had shaken him profoundly, stripping away the entitled attitude that had defined him for so long. Upon release, he moved to Milwaukee, far from Chicago and the scene of his disgrace. There he found work at a small software company, starting in customer service and slowly rebuilding a legitimate career. Our reconciliation was even more tentative than with our parents. I agreed to speak with him 6 months after his release, a brief, awkward coffee meeting where he offered a genuine but incomplete apology. I never realized how much they favored me until everything fell apart, he admitted. I took it for granted that I deserved more. It was never about deserving, I told him. It was about gender and their expectations. You were given opportunities I had to fight for. He nodded, unable to meet my eyes. I know that now. I cannot change the past, but I am trying to be different going forward. I did not offer forgiveness that day, but I did offer the possibility of a future relationship contingent on his continued growth and accountability. Sometimes that is the most generous gift we can give to those who have harmed us, the chance to become better people. The most profound change, however, occurred within me. The painful journey forced me to confront questions about success, family, and self-worth that might otherwise have remained buried beneath achievement and ambition. What does success mean when divorced from external validation? What family do we choose when our birth family fails us? How do we measure our worth beyond the recognition of those who should have valued us from the beginning? I found answers in unexpected places. In the mentorship program I established at my firm, guiding young female attorneys from disadvantaged backgrounds. In the pro bono work I took on representing families facing foreclosure, inspired by my parents' experience, but channeled toward helping others avoid similar fates. In the scholarship fund I created at Harvard Law for first-generation college students, providing the support I had lacked. These initiatives brought a fulfillment that transcended career advancement or financial success. They connected me to a larger purpose, transforming personal pain into meaningful action. The wounds inflicted by my family's favoritism became the foundation for helping others who felt unseen and undervalued. During our most recent therapy session, my mother asked a question that revealed how far she had come in her understanding. If you could go back, she said hesitantly, would you change what happened? Would you want us to have been different parents? I considered this carefully before answering. The pain was real and unnecessary, I acknowledged, but I would not be who I am without that journey. I built myself in the absence of your support, and I like who I have become. So no, I would not change it, though I might have spared us all some suffering if I could. My father nodded, tears in his eyes. You succeeded not because of us, but despite us. That is both our greatest shame and your greatest triumph. The truth of his statement resonated deeply. My success was indeed my own hard-won through determination and resilience. The recognition I now received from my parents while healing in its way was no longer essential to my sense of self. I had learned to validate my own worth, to measure success by my own standards, rather than through others' approval. Perhaps that is the most profound lesson from my journey. True self-worth cannot be granted by others, not even those who should love us most. It must be built from within, forged in the challenges we overcome, and the integrity with which we face them. For those watching who might see echoes of their own family dynamics in my story, know this: You are not defined by others' failure to value you appropriately. Your worth exists independent of recognition. Your potential waits to be claimed through your own efforts. If you have experienced similar family dynamics or unfair treatment, I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. How did you overcome being undervalued? What strategies helped you build self-worth when others failed to see your value? Please like this video if it resonated with you. Subscribe for more stories of resilience and growth, and share with someone who might need to hear this message today. Remember, sometimes the family we build for ourselves becomes more important than the one we were born into. And sometimes the journey to finding our own worth becomes the most important journey of our lives. Thank you for listening to my story, and may you find strength in your own.